I'm going to talk a little bit about how to measure, refine, and scale the business value that you're seeing from social customer service. There's obviously, social media is still relatively new. Social marketing has been more developed over the years, and social customer service in particular is even more recent. And so a lot of companies are really trying to work out how they build the business case. As I mentioned earlier with Rebecca, something that we've seen over the last 3.5 years that we've been working with brands on this is that a lot of companies start by setting up a social customer service team, either because they've got senior management who really care passionately and understand social and want to ensure that they're giving the best possible experience, or often it's set up because there's been a crisis that's affected their company, or a crisis that's affected a close competitor, and the fear of that has led them to want to invest in a social customer service team. But over the last couple of years, we're continuing to see the volume of social customer service issues increase pretty dramatically. We work with brands and companies who've seen the volume of incoming messages they receive on Facebook and Twitter grow by more than 10 times over the past 18 months. And as that growth happens, obviously it's very important for companies to be able to still deliver the same level of service, and that means they need to invest more, generally in resources. And so they're adding more and more staff and more people, buying more software for that, and that does require bigger and bigger investments. And as that happens, we're seeing companies see the need to build more of a concrete return on investment model, more than just that they want to deliver a good experience or that they're scared of a crisis happening. And so we've been working on these ROI calculations with our customers, and I'm going to talk a little bit about it. I wanted to kick off and start by just talking a couple of quotes from some major analysts in this space, Forrester and Gartner, talking about some of the customer service metrics and how they're seeing it change. And both of these are really along the same trend, that traditional customer service metrics were very, very, very focused on efficiency, cost control, keeping costs low, speaking to customers as quickly as possible, and getting them off the phone. Social media is starting to change that because customer service is now becoming so public. And what we're seeing across the call center and across contact centers is that there's this big trend that, yes, efficiency metrics are still important. Yes, cost is important, especially if you're employing hundreds or even thousands of agents. But customer satisfaction is starting to become a really key metric. This is a quote from one of Forrester's top 15 trends for 2013 across everything, that customer service is moving away from just being a cost center and becoming a differentiator. Gartner has said the same thing as well. And this really ties very heavily into social media and how social media is being used. And so what are the metrics that you can use to measure the performance of your social customer service? We've worked with lots of different ones over the years and with different customers. And three of the key ones that we see coming up time and again and becoming more important are still efficiency, which I'll dig into, customer satisfaction, which is becoming really a primary consideration now, not just for customer service, but also for marketing, and so aligning them in that way. And thirdly, a new one that we call revenue protection, which is really an offshoot from customer attrition, which is also a major factor now for customer service. And so for each one of these, I'm going to talk quickly about how companies can ensure they're delivering this in the best way, and also ways of measuring it. And then I'll finish with a few case studies before we go on to the discussion. So the first one about efficiency. The key thing that we mean here is that there's a lot of evidence, I've got a stat here from Gartner, that it's actually much cheaper and much more effective for agents to solve an issue over social media than it is to pick up the phone. Gartner found that social customer service agents can resolve 4 to 8 times the amount of issues every hour than a phone agent can. Partly this is because it's digital, and the constraints of social force people to communicate in small bits of content. But all the evidence adds up shows that resolving issues through social media is far cheaper and more effective than redirecting people to pick up over the phone. And obviously the key thing here is that the only way to do this is to be able to have real customer service agents working directly in social media channels, actually resolving issues, and not just redirecting people when they have a question to email or phone customer service. Another key one that we see a lot of our customers, especially in things like technology or travel, people like GoDaddy, is that they're using the ability to post proactive service updates to their followers to help reduce the amount of questions that are incoming. So if there's a known service issue, they can use something like Twitter or Facebook to tell everyone about that before it becomes a customer service issue. in terms of measuring this, probably the key one is around call deflection. What's the cost? You can do a calculation specific to yourself and your call center, where you can work out how many social issues are being solved per hour versus how many issues your phone agents can solve, and work out the cost for each one. And then you can see that if you solve 1,000 issues a month over social, or 10,000 or 100,000, you can easily compare the cost of those compared to how much it would have cost if those people had phoned. And that can be a complex calculation or a quick and dirty one that can easily give you an indication of how much money you're saving by encouraging customers to complain via social media, or by helping them over social media before it turns into a phone call. You can also look at the reach, how many customers you're able to reach with proactive updates. It can be, the volume of social compared to the volume of email and phone is still relatively small, although we have some customers now where social is up to 10% of all of their social media inquiries. But we have seen some initial findings, including from travel companies, where they're finding that social media is actually decreasing the overall call volume they're getting into their call center, and so seeing some real results on this. For more specific data, you can also use surveys. We've seen customers do this both as a direct exit survey, so when they've actually helped someone over social media, they've tweeted them a link to a survey straight away, or by just doing things like a monthly survey which they tweet out to all of their followers. And the key question here is really asking, and I'll come back to this again, asking, had they been helped over social media, and what would they have done if they hadn't been helped? Would they have emailed? Would they have phoned? Would they have even stopped being a customer? And those kind of metrics give you some really hard figures for your own customers and the own service that you're delivering that help you measure the impact of social. And so efficiency, even though it might not be the biggest numbers, it is important. And as social continues to play a bigger and bigger part of customer service, and you need more and more agents, then this is only going to become more important. And it's a great justification, especially if you're talking to kind of customer service directors, as to why it makes sense to invest into social customer service. The second big one is customer satisfaction. How are you actually ensuring your customers are happy and satisfied with your service and your product? And this is really key. And we mentioned earlier this is becoming a key metric for call centers and contact centers and customer service, but it's also really a key metric now for marketing and CMOs. And again, key to customer satisfaction is really a few different things. The first one, as I mentioned before, is about actually resolving issues directly in social media. Not only is that far more efficient, but it also delivers a much, much better customer experience. There's a whole host of research that's been done really over decades in customer service that shows that people want to be helped at the first point of contact. If they pick up the phone and phone you, they want someone to help them. They don't want to be passed around. And it's the same in social media. If someone tweets you a question, they want the answer over Twitter. They don't want to be told to then email someone else or phone someone else. Especially important when you consider that a lot of people who come to you via social media have come to you as a last resort. They've already emailed, they've already phoned, they haven't got the help they needed, and they turn to social to get help. And obviously the worst thing that you can possibly do is then to tell them to email or phone again. So resolving is really the key thing. The second one is responding quickly. People will now accept, if they email you for help, that they might get a response in 2 days. People don't have that same kind of expectation on social. Places like Twitter and Facebook are very real-time platforms. And we've done a lot of research in this with New York University and other studies, and a large amount of people expect a very short response. And I've put here 30% of consumers on Twitter expect a response in under 30 minutes. And actually it's over half of consumers expect a response in at least 2 hours, which is actually much faster than many companies are delivering today. And so if you want to be able to deliver that kind of level of customer satisfaction, it's essential that you're resourced and have the processes in place so that you can actually respond and resolve issues much quicker than you can over other channels. And this is important not just in terms of thinking about the consumer expectations, but it's also worth keeping in mind that every single complaint they make over Twitter, every single complaint they post on your Facebook page is completely public. And so the longer you take to answer that, the more chance that other people will see it, that it could spiral out of control and turn into a much bigger issue, like we saw with Odeon earlier on. And finally, a great way to deliver customer satisfaction over and above the norm is to deliver proactive service. GoDaddy, I've got a great case study on this, which you can download from our website, whereby they will actively search for customers who are tweeting about problems they're having, even if they're not tweeting at GoDaddy and before they've even emailed for help. And they'll find them and they'll respond to them and help fix their issue before it turns into a customer service issue. And Lorne from GoDaddy, he talks about that if someone has a problem, by the time they've got in touch, they're probably not very happy, and you can just about save that and bring them back to neutral. But if you're proactively reaching out to customers before they've even emailed, before they've tweeted, it's a chance to really delight your customers, and that it does more for customer satisfaction and sentiment than almost anything else. So in terms of how you measure this, the best way, the kind of traditional way of measuring customer satisfaction, or one of the main traditional ways, is the Net Promoter Score, NPS. And that's really asking customers if they'd recommend you or not. And there's a lot of information on how companies do that, and it's a pretty standard measure. You can survey people in social media in the same way, like I mentioned earlier, with exit surveys or just by generally posting it out to everyone. But actually, because so much of the social interactions that are happening around your brand are already public, it's really the Net Promoter Score in action. If someone is writing a public comment talking about the great service they've had and how much they love your brand, then that's promotion in action. And the same thing if they write a negative comment. If they're writing on your Facebook page talking about the terrible service they've had and how they don't want to use you again, and all their friends can see that and other people can see that, again, that's the traction in action. And so we think it's actually much better just to measure that sentiment. There are different ways of doing this. There are some tools which apply automated sentiment analysis to these things. That can be useful, especially if you're getting an overall kind of trend, but it can also be quite inaccurate. Our approach is to make it as easy as possible for customer service agents to mark the sentiment, positive, negative, neutral, of the conversations they're having, so that you have that exact accuracy. But once you have the sentiment of all those conversations, it's possible to really track your social Net Promoter Score and see how that changes over time. We've got a great case study with Odin, which I'll share in a second, about how they managed to massively decrease the negative sentiment and increase the positive sentiment on their Facebook page by taking these steps. And finally, I want to touch on revenue protection, which is a metric that we go into a lot more detail in the definitive guide, and it's something that's really come out as we've worked with our customers on building these ROI models. And this is really about protecting the revenue of these customers who are coming to you via social. As I mentioned earlier, social is often used as a last resort. They're coming to you for help. They may have looked elsewhere already. And if you ignore those customers, not only are you ignoring a customer who's trying to get in touch with you, so you're probably going to upset them, but often you're ignoring them at the last possible chance you have to help them before they stop being a customer. And this can cause increases in customer attrition, decrease in customer value, etc. And so key here again is that you're resolving issues, but also that you're prioritizing real customer service issues. You need to identify and find people who are complaining via social and respond to them as quickly as possible. And also put a note here that you need to act before your competitors do. Something we've seen an increase across airlines and other companies, that when people are complaining publicly about issues that they're having, it's now readily available and possible for your competitors to find those and actually get in touch with them and offer them help. And so not only can make customers leave by themselves, but it's now an open playing field for other companies to jump in before you do. The metric, the way we've been working this out with our customers, is looking at the unique number of customers that you're helping, your social customer care team is helping every year, multiplied by the potential value of those customers. And again, this can be a quick back-of-the-envelope calculation to get the total kind of potential exposed revenue that your care team is helping to protect. You can also go into a lot more complexity, looking around, what kind of response times do people expect? If we manage to grow the volume of inquiries by 100%, how many of those will we be able to respond to in under an hour? How many are going to take us longer than that, and so we might lose them? And so you can really go down into complex calculation. But the key kind of basic calculation here is just looking at what's the total amount of revenue of all these customers that you're helping over social. And this can be a really great way of justifying social customer service investment to senior management, and just to make them realize that the customers you are helping are actually seriously valuable. And just touching on a few kind of case studies around this, obviously this is still early, and it's something we've been working with a lot of our customers, and we're at different stages of calculation with different customers. On efficiency, a couple of case studies here from GoDaddy and JackThreads. GoDaddy are now dealing with more than 1,000 real customer service issues every single week over social media. People that probably would have emailed or phoned or stopped being a customer if they weren't there. Jack Threads, one of the fastest growing internet retailers in America, their social customer service is growing 5% every single week. I mentioned earlier it's now more than 10% of all of their customer service issues. A great case study of how by working with us, their team are now able to handle more than 10 times more issues every hour than they could natively. On customer satisfaction, as I mentioned earlier with Rebecca, we worked with them over a couple of years as they took social in-house and moved away from just using it as a pure marketing channel and actually took it into the call center and had real customer service agents actually responding and resolving issues. And as they did that, they saw a massive reduction in negative sentiment, over 60%, whilst halving the amount they were spending on managing social by taking it in-house. So a massive win on the customer satisfaction score that completely changed the tone of the conversations that their customers were having in social. And finally, on revenue protection, we did this. We worked through this with Hertz recently, and they forecast that their social care team will be protecting more than $10 million of annual revenue this year in 2013 in terms of the amount of unique customers that they're going to be helping over social media and how much those customers are worth. So this is starting to be really big money and very significant to senior management. So we're going to go on and talk a bit more with some discussion topics with our panelists. We have a few questions from the audience and also some key discussion we want to talk about. One thing that I wanted to just start with is who is actually making this investment. Who's actually paying for it? Which budgets is it coming out of? Social's obviously started very much as a marketing campaign, but we're now seeing customer service getting heavily involved. Really interested, Rebecca and Michael. Maybe Rebecca, you wanted to start and just tell us in Odeon, is this considered a marketing budget, a customer service budget? Is there a separate social budget? How do you view that at Odeon, and how do you see it changing?
I think at the moment what tends to happen with most businesses is they start their sort of social journey in the marketing team. So the marketing team, they're the ones that are responsible for all the posts and then sort of the feedback, and they learn about sort of their audience and sort of customer satisfaction. And then I think as the sort of pages and the infrastructure grows, I think what's happening more and more, and especially with Odeon, is that we're realizing that actually sort of social media is a valid sort of an important customer service channel. And we, like I say, sort of out of hours, we do rely on our sort of contact center to sort of handle queries. So at the moment it's a real partnership. But I think sort of where in the future where this would lie, sort of hopefully within Odeon, but I think for sort of a majority of businesses, is that social media will sort of split down the middle. So sort of I'm sort of tracking it almost as sort of email marketing. The marketers sort of put together the emails, but any kind of responses and things don't come back to the marketing team. They go directly to sort of the customer service center, and I think that's what will end up happening with social. I think the marketeers will sort of develop the content, work on the partnerships, and then sort of all customer services will sort of go through contact center with one kind of head of social who kind of holds up and sort of keeps everything afloat.
Yeah, I'd have to definitely agree with that. It's certainly the budgets are starting in marketing, and in some cases the marketing organizations are funding the support issues, whether it's headcount, certainly technology, and then usually what I'm seeing is the support organizations will then kind of take over budget management of that. So the initial investment is starting within marketing and potentially even corporate communications. But then as companies are becoming more sophisticated and realizing that customer service is very impactful to their business, they are now dedicating teams, usually cross-functional teams, who are kind of have a shared responsibility of marketing, customer service, technology, etc. So very similar to what Rebecca is seeing as well.
And Michael, how do you think that's going to change? Where do you think will be? Do you think that's going to stay the same in future? Do you think there's going to be the kind of winning model will be this kind of combined team and combined budget across marketing and customer service? Or do you think social will become kind of ingrained as part of marketing and part of customer service, and they'll keep their own budgets?
I think it'll be more of the former. So I think that teams are what we're seeing is we're helping brands build these centralized teams, and you can call them centralized centers of excellence or centralized even editorial teams who are not just responsible for outbound content but also reactive content as well in the form of support. So I'm seeing a shift towards more of a centralized model that is managing, all aspects of social to include internal social media as well as customer service.
And we had a question coming from the audience about how localization and translation kind of fits into this. If you're a brand that is selling in multiple countries, how are you keeping control of that? Are you keeping control of social and social customer service in one place and just having to deal with different languages? Are you having to deliver best practice to different countries and have different teams in each country handling it? What kind of trends have you seen there?
That's a really good question, and I think whether you're creating outbound content or responding to inbound content, I think that having a local presence is to the utmost of importance because there's a cultural divide, and when we're creating content, you have to be culturally sensitive and understand the different cultural nuances of marketing and content, and the same could be said for inbound customer service issues. So we're seeing the investments and the teams built around geography because, and that's a challenge because it's really difficult to scale and get the right people and hire the right teams, and it's hard to communicate and localize content. But that's really, I mean, for brands who are really serious about this, having localized teams is the most efficient and most productive way to go.
Yes, yeah, I
Rebecca,
completely agree. Oh, sorry. I was just saying, yeah, I completely agree. I mean, I don't actually manage directly sort of any translation issues, but I do manage the both UK and Ireland markets, and sort of the you do have to sort of be culturally aware, culturally sensitive, have an idea of sort of the economics, what's going on. You need to be sort of always sort of up to date with what's going on. And we have one contact centre who sort of deals with everything, but there is definitely sort of a local sort of Ireland marketing team. Sort of there's real local operations, and I sort of tend to go over there regularly. I was actually over there yesterday, sort of speaking with all the sort of operations team, cinema managers, to make sure that in how we respond and how our contact centre team respond when I'm not available, that we're really kind of sort of really getting the sort of customer vibe and the idea of sort of what's going on, what the state of the industry is, and what we can do to make sure that we're as helpful as possible.
and again, we've spoken a lot about building the business case and the models and how you justify it, and who's paying for it. What are some of the biggest barriers that you guys are seeing to justifying your investment into social customer service? And how can you kind of overcome resistance to it among senior management? Rebecca, do you want to just kick
That's
off on that?
fine. I think the sort of biggest thing for social is it's still in its infancy. I mean, if you sort of think 5-6 years ago where social media was, businesses are still questioning whether to have it. Businesses still are questioning whether to have it, and it's completely evolving. So I think it's trying to sort of, like you say, make the business case rather than saying we can generate this much revenue, we can promise this and this and this, which perhaps might not compete with some of your more traditional forms of marketing. You need to try and think sort of about the more transient sort of benefits towards it. So, for example, I know you sort of put some stats on the side, kind of revenue saved. So whilst you're not generating revenue, what revenue are you saving? What kind of brand management are you putting up? And I think it's these kind of stats. What does your brand look like? And considering social is just so ingrained in everyone's lives, I think it's invaluable. And I almost think from sort of personal perspective, having sort of a crisis as such kind of really helps to strengthen the idea that actually it is important, it does matter, and we need to make sure that there is a plan in place as a long-term goal in terms of how social media sort of fits and is ingrained sort of into the actual core structure of a business rather than sort of sitting on the outskirts. So I think that's what it is from me.
Yeah, the way that, I mean, that's a challenge, and I certainly do a conversation analysis or some type of report showing showing an executive all the conversations that are happening about the brand, and guarantee you a high percentage of those conversations will be either negative or customer service related. And so when executives see that and they realize that there's really no initiative to respond and to to solve these customer problems, there's usually a panic, and there's usually kind of a call to action with their team saying this is something that's important. Because a lot of executives don't realize, and it's not, they're right now they're worried about market share and marketing and stock price and things like that. They're not necessarily thinking about customer service and social media. So by providing them with reporting and even data from, like Josh, you talked about Gartner and Forrester, providing them with those data points. But when they actually see the conversations, that is speaks volumes, and that is something that that really motivates them to start thinking seriously about making some type of investment and organizational shift into customer service.
Yeah, I'd agree. I mean, that's certainly something that we've seen as well, that when you just look at the pure numbers, if a company has got thousands of customer service agents and maybe dealing with millions of emails and phone calls every month, to start talking about that they're getting tens of thousands of tweets or Facebook messages, the numbers might seem very small. But when you can actually show a real story and actually show real issues that customers are having, and that this is happening publicly on the brand's Facebook page or on their Twitter account, and other people get involved, suddenly it can make it very, very real. We've certainly seen some companies jump into investing in this because their senior execs have logged onto the Facebook page and just looked at the conversations going on.
Mm-hmm.
It does make it much more real than it can be from otherwise. Michael, just a quick one. We haven't got that long, only a couple minutes left, but you speak a lot about the kind of connection of customer service and marketing from a content perspective as well. I was wondering if you've seen any good examples of companies who are kind of connecting the social customer service with their marketing to create kind of content opportunities.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think Lowe's is a great example, and but if you think about Lowe's, which is the home improvement retailer, similar to Home Depot, right? They, people go into Lowe's and Home Depot to figure out how to fix things, right? To change a shower head or to replace a door, or to how to take out a screw that's been stripped. So what they're doing is they're kind of it's kind of a different way to think about it, but they're building content that answers those questions, right? So there's a 6-second video on Vine that Lowe's created about a month ago that shows you can put like a little toothpick in the head of a screw and then use a screwdriver and it grabs the screw and it pulls it out, right? And these are things that, and so the question arises, like, you're helping these customers solve a problem. Now they're not going to come into your store, and I think that's the wrong way to look at it. You're adding value. You're helping them solve a problem. So when they need to purchase products that you offer, you become top of mind, and they're going to go to Lowe's to purchase that new screwdriver or to purchase a vacuum cleaner or whatever it is. And so Lowe's is a great example of a company doing this.
Okay. Thanks very much. Well, we've just about run out of time. So a big thank you to both Michael and Rebecca for joining us today. And keep an eye out for Michael's upcoming book, Your Brand, The Next Media Company. All of the topics that we've discussed today can be found in our definitive guide, which you can download just from conversocial.com, and that includes contributions from both Michael and Rebecca, and also goes into more detail on other subjects. So stay tuned for future webinars and announcements, and I look forward to speaking to you next time. Thanks very much.